Alrighty, welcome back everyone. It is LaughNgamez here. I'm back with another Starcraft 2 1 vs 1 bot AI cast. We have got ourselves what should be a good one here today, as it's going to be none other than Xena taking on BenBotBC. I cast these two bots fairly frequently as they're incredibly well developed and exciting to see. So we've basically got the Cheese King gonna be taking on the Turtle King in this match here today, and these two bots really are the best at what they do, it would seem. BenBot is very defensive, but is very hard to kill early on. Xena is the opposite of that in the sense that it's very aggressive, and I guess will try and kill you early on for the most part. So, ladies and gentlemen, before we get too far into this one, as always, make sure to go ahead and click that like button if you haven't already. You guys always blow it out of the water. And then leave a comment down below saying more bots if you want to see more of these bot matches, as I certainly enjoy casting them. And then just subscribe if you're not already subscribed. You may have just clicked on the first one of these casts, or you may be a regular viewer just through the YouTube recommended, but go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, as we put out daily videos on this channel. So, we've got BenBot going for a low ground wall, which is one of its key features. It's a very defensive wall. It'll add siege tanks, mines, turrets later on, potentially. In the chat tag, it did say Boptapa? I don't know. I don't know exactly what that stands for, but BenBot just generally opens up the same way, fairly defensive in most of its games, whereas Xena, I'm pretty sure, is going to be going for that Tempest rush that it's been doing quite a bit on the ladder lately. A lot of these bots, what they do is they pick a build that has the greatest win rate. It's sort of, I guess it's an algorithm for that a lot of the developers use, because if you have a bot that opens up in multiple ways, some ways are going to be more successful against certain opponents, so you can track that. It's the same decision that pro players make, and if you're someone who ladders a lot, you might make certain decisions against certain other players. So the bots are kind of emulating that, as, it definitely can affect the win rates, but then you get both bots doing that, so at some point, I guess it can be a bit of an interesting interaction. It also lets bot authors know which builds may need improvements, which ones they should potentially cut, that kind of thing. But all in all, we do have Xena going for a fleet beacon. I'm going to be honest with you guys for this replay. I'm always hesitant when it comes to casting a Xena game, because Xena's matches are... They sometimes can be hit or miss. Sometimes you can have things like 20 stalkers sitting outside of a base, afraid to engage, or I did cast a game previously in which it kind of just chilled with a bunch of Tempests and Zealots because of a bug. But most of the time the games are rather entertaining, so I'm just being honest with this one. I did actually click into 2 points in the replays. Nothing enough to give me spoilers, but enough to be like, okay, stuff happens in this game. It's fun to watch, as that is why I enjoy casting these games. I get to experience them with you guys watching, as if I was to cast games that I had pre-screened 100% of the match or anything like that, I wouldn't do it, because I'd just be so bored, as I've never been able to really do that. Even if I watch a tournament or something, I don't cast those games for YouTube. Like if I watched like WCS or GSL, that kind of thing, I'd never cast the replays of games I watched, because it's like, I know what's going to happen. Where's the excitement? It's all about seeing who wins, and that's what we're waiting to see in this game, as BenBot opens up, well, sends out an SCV scout. Xena opens up with that first Tempest on the way, and Oracle's coming out too, as BenBot does go into Viking production already, so maybe it's got a bit of an idea that this is coming from Xena. It could just be one of those things that sometimes BenBot opens up with Vikings, and it finds that it has a good rate, a good win rate against Xena. So we're going to see as that first Tempest comes on in, we've got BenBot saying chat tag, early Tempest. That Tempest does start shooting at some of these Marines. Of course, the success of a build like this can be very map dependent. And so far, Interloper doesn't seem that good for BenBot. As I say that, though, one Viking does come on in with the Marines pursuing the Tempest. That's actually quite good. So this Tempest getting chased by not one, but two Vikings now. So Xena may lose that first Tempest. It's just one Viking locked on. The other Viking says, nope, not my problem, going back home. Still, though, that one Tempest does perish. A second Tempest comes on out as these Marines are buying BenBot time, though. The Tempest is starting to shoot them down, but this means that the Terran bot is going to be able to be up at 4 Vikings relatively soon as it repairs up that injured one. So all in all, a fairly good start for BenBot. It also excitingly says going into Thor mode, which is not something we see from BenBot too darn often. Veteran is the bot that's really known for building Thors, but it's not been quite as high on the ladder or received too many updates lately. So let's see, another Tempest out on the map. However, this one is just getting sandwiched between two Vikings as they start to shoot at it. Will it at least kill off that one Viking? Yes, it does. One Tempest for one Viking is not a good trade, but we do have two Tempests coming out now. BenBot's just rallying quite a few of its units across the map. The Oracle still is present to drop Revelations. It's yet to drop another one for Xena. Xena seems to be in defensive mode, though, as the Oracle does take some shots. One Tempest back at home is shooting away. A battery overcharge does get popped for Xena, which is very cool to see. There's also a cannon on the ground, so BenBot overcommits a little bit with the counter swing to this rush. Still, though, the Protoss bot is in a bit of a poor economic position. It hasn't done much damage, or, well, ideally killed its opponent, which is kind of the goal with a one-base Tempest rush. But Xena does get up a Nexus behind this. This is one of the things that makes Xena quite exciting to watch. The games that go later, sometimes it does have very good late-game macro. Now, the Protoss bot does just have that Nexus getting established, so it's got quite a few probes to build still before that's saturated up. And uh-oh, this is not good for the Tempest as they're kiting away, but it looks like at least one of them will die. One Viking does get taken down. However, Xena loses an Oracle, loses a Tempest for one Viking. BenBot does have a third command center building behind this, so it is still building up quite an army. The Viking response to this Tempest rush seems to be quite well programmed. Just starting to produce early Vikings did a world of wonders. The fact that BenBot pumps Marines in the early game gave it the anti-air. And now we have Big Daddy Thor out, but oh no, is that Thor stuck? Oh gosh, please no, BenBot. I think BenBot may be the #1 bot if it stopped getting units stuck behind some of its production, which is an easier thing to say rather than to actually program, but that is quite painful for the Terran bot as its eBay blocks the Thor. Yeah, that is not great. So, one stuck Thor, I guess it's just too thick. The Thor is just too thick to get around that. It doesn't look like it's too thick to fit through there, because like a Thor can get through a supply depot wall usually, but maybe it's just bad pathing because of the eBay. I don't know, like, I feel like that Thor should be able to get out there, but maybe it's just bad pathing. It's tough to say. Anyway, we do have BenBot pushing out with its Vikings once again. A battery overcharge going to save that Tempest bacon. Pardon me if I missed a few Tempest deaths there potentially out on the map. You know, I rarely do this, but I'm actually going to rewind a second. Apologies if I missed anything. We're going to go back a few seconds just to see this full engagement as 8 Vikings and a few Marines do move out for BenBot. I'm not going to get distracted by the Thor this time, I promise. So BenBot does just straight up attack out with its Vikings, which is very cool. Looks like one Tempest does get targeted down right away. There's 2 more present. They do shoot away at some of the Vikings. Oracle doesn't drop a Revelation. Battery overcharge does keep that one other Tempest alive, but still, Xena is only on 2 Tempests, so the Vikings are doing a great job zoning this out. Xena does eventually start going into charge lots behind this. This is something, I guess it has a mineral surplus when rushing Tempest, so it's a rather realistic approach to this strategy. Now, 2 Tempests will find 1 Viking, except they're scared of it, but they should be able to kill it off as BenBot sent most of its other injured Vikings back home. Very cool to see that it does micro them in a way that they all take a bit of damage but stay alive for the most part. Third Nexus does go up for Xena, as the Protoss bot has got that natural quite saturated up. Although it's not mining any more gas yet. Probably a resource balancing thing. So we'll see if it loses some gas or produces another Tempest, if it will put something in that gas right away. Xena still poking and prodding a little bit. BenBot is on 3 bases, happily mining. This is a very cool thing of BenBot, which I suppose is probably a build decision. Or maybe a matchup race-specific thing, because in TVZ, at least, I can say, because I cast a BenBot TVZ game not too long ago, it usually goes for planetaries at the 3rd, but in this matchup, it's not doing that, so it's got the extra mule money, which is exactly what you want to do against an opponent that's playing a slower style, like Tempest, that kind of thing. You can out-greed them a little bit, so we do have a 4th orbital going up for BenBot. Tempest are sitting back behind a cannon, behind a battery, which is very important for Xena. Without that presence, BenBot may have just dived in with all its Vikings. So the Vikings are actually going to take some shots, and they're clumping up in a way which is not ideal, as, yeah, I guess they're afraid of the cannon, so they don't actually get any shots off on these Tempests. We've got BenBot saying Zealot. I guess it's a Widowmine reaction to that. I don't know. We do have another Thor out for BenBot. However, this guy seems to be getting body blocked by SCVs now. So we've yet to see the Thors get aggressive. We do have a battle cruiser on the way for BenBot, which is not necessarily ideal, as Tempest are the natural predator. Xena is investing in +2 attack on the Tempest as well, but BenBot does have +2 armor already done, getting +2 attack and +3 armor for these Vikings, so they will have a nice upgrade lead. The charge lots are going to be helpful for clearing out the ground units, but they are not actually going to be able to zone out the Vikings at all. So we'll see how this goes. As Xena, I think, is actually just going to go for an attack. It immediately changes its mind upon seeing all that Terran, which is probably the right decision, as the current count is 19 Vikings against 6 Tempest. The Protoss bot, looks like it was getting harassed a little bit by a Hellion. Cleans that up, though. The 3rd base is mining, but it's not like Xena's on some amazing economy. It's gone up to 44 probes and said, that's good enough. It's also not mining gas from these yet, but I assume that's just because it stays on 1 Stargate production. That's something the developers haven't added in, but they very well maybe could add in an extra Stargate to have higher Tempest production when a game does go a little bit later. The Zealots just absolutely gobble up the Marines of BenBot. This is a ridiculous amount of Zealots for Xena. 34 Zealots in all. There's only 1 Oracle for detection, though, so Widowmines could definitely cause a problem. Thors are still hanging out here. I'm not sure what their purpose is at this point. It's not something we see BenBot do too often, so I don't know if they just usually hang out at the wall or get aggressive or what. For now, though, the Terran bot does continue to expand, getting up not just a 4th, a 5th, and then a 6th command center building, as the Protoss bot stays on 3 bases, just building Zealots. Xena has made many warp gates, but still just stays on 1 Stargate. So I think that's got to be my next request for this build, if the bot authors do change it up at all. That it would be to make, I don't know, a 2nd Stargate if a game goes long, or add in a couple stalkers on the ground to help zone out things like mass Vikings. I don't know. Xena does win the vast majority of its games early on, though, but it can't kill BenBot early on, it seems, so it's got no choice but to play a little bit later with this strategy. And let's see. BenBot coming forward, however, that cannon did a good job zoning out the Vikings last time, and it seems it's going to do that again, so the pathing of BenBot with its Vikings may need a bit of work. Battlecruiser moves forward, immediately gets forced to retreat, and so this is just a big Viking blob. These bot games are ridiculous. 1 Yamato cannon goes off on a battlecruiser. Xena elects to pursue its opponent with 51 Zealots in tow, which is ridiculous. The Protoss bot is maxed out on Zealots and Tempest, so it may actually want to lose some Zealots so it can make more Tempest, as the current unit count, 51 Zealots, 10 Tempest. BenBot has got quite a, well, 3 Thors out, 1 stuck. Multiple battle cruisers have been produced, but now we are seeing the Protoss bot come in with all of these Zealots charging forward. Widowmine's gonna start going off, and yeah, let's see here as the Zealots charge forward. We do have the Tempest not really going any further, and Xena does elect to pull back, so BenBot keeps the CC alive, and the Zealots do end up getting pulled back. Xena makes more Zealots, makes another Tempest, so it did lose a few units there, but all in all, it forced a base off for BenBot, so rarely inconsequential event. The Protoss bot is just staying on 3 bases, so BenBot has got way more money than its opponent, but we'll see whether BenBot can actually potentially kill all these Tempests or not, as anytime they retreat to this cannon, they seem to do pretty well, but we do actually see a Tempest go down, so that's a nice pickoff. Xena has started mining from these gases at the natural, which is interesting to see. We'll see when the Protoss bot does take a 4th base. If it does, Xena, again, isn't exactly a macro-focused bot. It just kind of takes the bases as a bit of redundancy, which is very respectful, as not a lot of cheesy bot authors actually take the time to program something like that in, or have their bots really reach that advanced stage where they think about that kind of thing. We do have the Tempest once again getting shots off. However, it's mass Viking against mass Tempest. That is not good for the Tempest. The Zealots on the ground, though, continue to do work as they force the CC off, and it looks like BenBot has had another command center be found, so Zealots are actually going to gut this one out. I think that's probably just like unintentional pathing, that a few Zealots got sectioned off there and found this, but now the rest of them do come in. The Tempest are doing some work, forcing some of these battle cruisers to teleport away. The Tempest are trying to fan out against the Vikings. However, many of these Tempest are going down as BenBot just commits forward, and it is an absolute butchery of all of those. Now, it looks like some of the Thors did get out. Zealots seem to actually be failing to attack the Thors, which is not ideal. And so many Zealots died, many Tempests died. And BenBot really just had to lift off a base, so that's not great. The Terran is also going into more battle cruisers, and battle cruisers with Viking support, I think, beats this number of Tempests, so we'll have to wait and see how this plays out. Xena does still have the cannon and battery at each base, so that could potentially zone the Vikings out still, if BenBot's pathing doesn't sort of just kamikaze in, I suppose. And so the cannon does help zone this out. Yamato cannon probably going to kill a Tempest. Yes, it actually does. Vikings are getting some good work done. Xena could be in a little bit of trouble right now. However, we do see these Vikings are actually scared to push on in, so the Tempests are getting free damage. There is a world in which these Tempests can kill off all the Vikings. However, more Yamato cannons going off. That cannon actually died. That's a big loss for Xena. It wants to rebuild that cannon, which is important, but I don't think it's going to happen, and so that basically means now there's only 2 Tempests left. The natural base is being gutted. There is more cannons inside the main base, so these Tempests so far in that location are untouchable. Xena takes a bit of an economic hit, though, as it's down to 30 workers, not making that much stuff. Unsurprisingly, the bot with more late-game programming seems to be doing better in this situation. Tempests are doing their thing, picking off Vikings, though, and so maybe that's something for BenBot's. It's a very difficult thing to program, is suicidal Vikings. Ketrock is a bot author that comes to mind in which he has programmed, like if he's up against Tempest so he doesn't just get kited to death, that he will have his bot actually make group up like 10 Vikings and suicide them over cannons, that kind of thing. Just trying to get the Tempest so something like this doesn't happen with the pathing, because it's not an easy thing to do. I guess the alternative would be to have your Vikings just try and run away until there's a situation they can engage. You could potentially add a check, like, hey, Vikings hanging around, getting shot at, dying, maybe pull them back. Again, not an easy thing to program, but if you do want your bot to avoid situations like that, you gotta put in that work. We do have Zealots afraid to engage, which is smart, seeing as how they're up against battle cruisers. This cannon hasn't been rebuilt for Xena. Now that's quite problematic, as that was the only thing keeping the Vikings at bay, really, so Xena will need to pull back with these units. The Protoss bot has yet to take a 4th base. Tempest are getting shot at. Will a battery overcharge get popped? Yes, it will, so these Tempest will stay alive-ish. Yes, they will stay alive. I think time is against the red Protoss bot, the hero with a whopping 43 Zealots, but as one can expect, if a rush like this doesn't work in the first 10 minutes, it's probably not going to work. Yamato cannon hits another Tempest, that goes down, no battery overcharge, and BenBot shows that it's just got a good that it's got great programming for handling something like this. Xena will lose the Nexus, and I think it's probably going to lose the game. The one Stargate's still alive, thank gosh for that. Otherwise, Xena would be in even more trouble, but yeah, the Tempests are just dying. Yeah, I do like the mass Zealots, though. It's rather comical for Xena. Battlecruiser coming on in. Vikings still being held at bay by the cannons, so the Tempests are shooting away. I mean, Xena's mining a little bit again, but it's rather broke. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's safe to say, if you enjoyed this one, click that like button if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below saying more bots, or let us know what you think would be a way to improve the strategy for either of these bots. But all in all, I think they both did exactly what they were programmed to do. BenBot, yeah, does have the good early game defense, so well done. But still, there's always a little bit of room for improvement. And yeah, did I say subscribe? And then big thanks to everyone that does support the channel via the YouTube membership. You can check that out in the link down below, or use the join button, as there's various perks you can get. And thanks to everyone that does support the channel via that way. We're a smaller community, but there's a few of you that do support, and it's very appreciated. So yeah, let's just wait as Xena gets mopped on up by BenBot, which is now a janitor. The Zealots are unfortunately a little useless in this case, as they do their thing. Also, you can let me know in the comments down below how you feel about health bars. I know they do block the vision a bit for the observer, and it's particularly an issue in bot games because bots are better at keeping their units alive. They always pull back the injured ones, so then the screen kind of gets filled up with health bars, because full HP units do not actually have their health bars shown, but bots, like mass Vikings, for example, that are all injured because they all get pulled back, do have their health bars showing. It's one Tempest trying to hold the line. Xena not mining at all. It's got 20 probes, but it is completely out of locations to mine from. And this is just getting a little bit goofy here. Is the one Tempest, how many kills does this thing have? It's at 4 kills, okay, but there's also battlecruisers, so it does die. And the wall will be broken. BenBot now saying attack with tanks. Does it bring the Thors too? No, the Thor's still just hanging out. I wonder if that's a very anti-Tempest rush thing, or maybe they're waiting for their Thor friend that is never coming. I don't really know. Anyway, that is going to be that, as BenBot cleans everything up. Oh, not quite everything.